Hello everyone, welcome to Toxic Google. I'm Kevin Vlk, and today we welcome the cast of the Netflix original series, Marvel's Daredevil. So, let's bring them on up. We have Charlie Cox, Deborah Ann Woll, Elodie Yung, and Jon Bernthal. Oh. Very smooth. Guys, welcome. We're so excited to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Absolutely phenomenal first season. So now we're in season 2. Charlie, talk to us just about what brought you to the series and just how you guys developed the tone of Daredevil season 1.
Okay, yeah. I mean, neither of those things I really did I have much input in. I mean, I just auditioned like everyone else, I guess. I went through quite a rigorous audition process. Probably the most intense audition process that I've ever been through. And really, the tone of the show. I mean, I read the scripts. I knew when I read the scripts, I knew that there was something special about them. I was invited to go to Disney in London, and I was in a room with 2 guys whose job it was to watch me read the scripts, and so making sure I wasn't photographing them or anything like that. And I walked out of there, and I sent an email to my agent, just saying I'd play any part in this. This is really, really special. And then, but then once we started filming, you know, all the tonal stuff's kind of completely out of my hands. And it wasn't until I saw the show, I saw the trailer, and I saw the show, and I saw what they'd done cinematically, and you know, all aspects of the show, from the costumes to the cinematography and the music and all of those stuff. You know, it was all certainly out of my control, and I thought they did a really wonderful job with all that stuff.
So what was your take on Matt Murdock when you go in to do that audition? How did you look at the character, and what was your take that you think that won them over?
Well, the good news is I'd never read a Daredevil comic. In fact, I had this kind of a story that I tell, which is that when I got the audition, there was in the email that came from my agents, there was a list of character attributes that, you know, this guy. It was a fake name in the first audition. They called him Alex, and they said Alex is, you know, tall and redhead and charismatic and strong and sexy, all these kind of things. And then I was working on the audition with a friend of mine, and he said, they said to me in the email, they think this is Daredevil. And the guy said, I think he's blind. And I was like, no, definitely not. I'm pretty sure they would have told me if the guy was blind. Yeah. No, but then, you know, getting the part, I guess, what was good was I was able to read the scripts and get a sense, you know, tonally what the show was going to be like, and who this character was in those original Drew Goddard episodes 1 and 2 of last year. And then when I was able to take that knowledge and go to the comics and sift through them all and find the different runs and the different illustrators and writers who best captured what I think the show was trying to do. And then I could concentrate on them. So there's a wonderful series. There's lots of great series, but there's a particular run of issues by Brian Bendis and Alex Maleev that I concentrated on, and I felt like they suited the show that was being written very well.
It was phenomenal. I think it blew everyone away because the tone of it is much more mature and much more adult and gory and just so freaking awesome. And so Deborah,
you a fan?
A little bit of a fanboy. But Deborah, and then you did phenomenal in season 1 as well, and you're back for season 2 as Deborah, or that's your name, it's Karen Page. And you know, tell us about where your character is now after season 1 and what she's doing in season 2.
Sure. I mean, I think we meet Karen sort of broken, and we see her trying to build up from that. But of course, we end in a very traumatic place as well. So, I think we're allowed to say we skipped 6 months between the first season and the second season. And so I think we start with our sort of Scooby Gang in a good place. Things are going well, and they're happy with each other. But because of this one, stuff quickly goes awry.
John.
Which was true on set as well. John came in, and everything just went to hell. That's
it, yeah.
So I mean, it's hard to talk about without giving anything away, but I think Karen's grappling with what she did last year. People talk a lot about how it's so funny that, or it's so bad that Matt and Foggy are keeping the secret that Matt is Daredevil from Karen. And I'm like, but Karen's got 2 big secrets, one of which is I killed the guy that she is keeping from them. So she's got to deal with that, I think.
I gotcha. Yeah. And Elodie, Jon, welcome to the Marvel and Netflix family. This is awesome. I think people were freaking out about season 2 and what characters were they going to be? Was it going to be Elektra? Oh, like we have Elektra. We got to have, you know, I think Bullseye was like one that like the fans were really pushing for. And then when Punisher got out, it was like, oh, who are they going to cast as Punisher? And I think a lot of people were pushing for Thomas Jane because of what he did in his past series. And then when you were cast, I think everyone was like, oh my God, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect casting. And so, Jon, can you talk about what was your, had you studied the character before? Did you know about it? Did you actually pursue it? Or was it one of those things you were even surprised they were coming to you for it?
No, I like Charlie. Audition, you know, came from my agents. Charlie and I actually have the same wonderful agent.
They got a package deal.
Yeah. And but no, you know, you know, it's an iconic character. So obviously, yeah, you know, I had some sort of sense of who he was, but kind of digging into the source material was a real joy, a real pleasure for me. And I think that, you know, there's been many iterations of the character, but I feel like I found his main kind of conflict and the crux of what I think he's really going through. To me, it came right from the comics, and I feel like because so many of the different lines of comics, Punisher comics that came out, they're delivered in soliloquy form. It's like it's perfect fodder for acting, you know. And no, but you know, once I saw season 1 and I saw what these guys did, and I saw that it really, to me, wasn't a superhero show, but it was a character study, and it was such a human show and such an honest show and raw show. I thought it was the perfect sort of stage for this character to be brought back. So I'm unbelievably honored and grateful to have the opportunity.
Was there some nervousness about taking on this kind of character? And you guys, I mean, you guys are not exactly friends for the majority of this, from what I can tell, in just the trailers and just seeing some of the episodes already. It's you guys are fighting a little bit, but you guys actually have some of the same goals. It seems like too.
Right.
Yeah, I think as you'll see, I mean, we definitely, you know, literally in the same conversation where I was welcome to Marvel, I was told keep your mouth shut. So they're very clear about that. So I'm not going to give, you know, much away. But yeah, I mean, I was again, I know, I think these characters, they're iconic and they matter so much to so many people. So there's an enormous amount of pressure and a real desire to not mess this thing up. Yeah, especially when you have a show that was so good in season 1. You know, the bar was set high.
For sure, you did a great job skirting that question.
Thank
Elodie, tell us about Elektra. Everyone's excited. It was referenced a little bit, very, very briefly in season 1, and now you're freaking Elektra and you're back. So tell us about the character and your take on her.
What do you want to know about her?
Well, okay, so how about your relationship? So you come in, because there's a little bit of romance, it seems, from some of the trailers with these two over here, and then all of a sudden you come in.
I don't know if Elektra really likes that. Yeah, we meet Elektra at this point 10 years after Matthew and her left each other, or, you know, broke up. So it's, she's, you know, it's an old flame, you know. It's a first love, and Elektra probably misses Matthew a little bit, so that's why maybe she comes back into his life. I can't say much really about it, but I believe that she misses him as much as she needs him for some stuff. And
not that kind of stuff.
And it was just great for me, you know, to get to play this incredible, interesting, crazy, wild character. Yeah. And like my colleagues, I didn't know much about her. It was just a completely new game field for me, and it was very interesting for me to get to read the comics and build this fantastic character. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope people will like her as much as I loved her.
And what did you bring to the character? Did you know any? I mean, she's amazing in the series and her fighting skills. And did you have any training before, or did you have to go through really crazy intense training?
You know, I have to be honest. We don't have the time really to train. I mean, Charlie is very committed to his work. I'm a bit more lazy, so I would. You know, we had to pick up things like this on the spot. You know, thankfully we were surrounded by amazing stunt guys, and I've practiced karate and all, you know, these martial arts, you know, back in the day, so I could pick up choreographies. But yeah, we had, you know, days where we had to go through the whole fight scenes, and it was painful, but also, you know, you're so happy when you see the result. I think it's incredible what they did. And yeah, and I'm proud that, you know, I was able to do it. So yeah, we had to. So no training for me, but still, you know, I had to do the fights. Yes.
I feel like I have to add that she's incredible at that stuff. She's like got a black belt in 3 different, in like martial arts and kung fu.
No, just one. Just
they show her the choreography, and she's like adds to it. I mean, she's amazing.
That's great. And Charlie and Deborah, you guys, you know, coming into season 2, you guys have new showrunners on it. Can you talk about the differences in what they brought to it? Because I think were they writers on the first series, season 1, right? And so, what did they bring as actual showrunners in taking Daredevil to the next level?
I mean, I feel very safe in their hands. I feel like they love these characters the same way that we do. Because when you take on a character like this, you start to love them like you love like a little sister or a little brother, you know, and you want to protect them and also make sure that they're well-rounded and three-dimensional. And so it was nice. Every time I ever spoke with Doug and Marco, I felt that they cared about Karen as much as I did and wanted to do right by her. So that enthusiasm. And, yeah.
Was there a little bit that you could play with a little bit more with Deborah or with Karen? I keep calling you Deborah.
Funny.
Usually it's the opposite, right? But no, but you know, with the Karen character, because, you know, if you change too much of Daredevil or you change too much of the Punisher, people get a little upset. But with Karen, did you have a little more freedom to do?
Well, Karen is almost 2 distinctly different characters in the comic books.
Right.
I mean, she kind of started as one thing and ended as a completely different one. So I know what we wanted to do was find our own Karen, and maybe that did give us a little more freedom with her, that, you know, her backstory can be anything that we want it to be. We don't necessarily have to follow what has been done before.
I got you, because she has a very mysterious past.
It's so exciting.
Okay.
I know everything.
You know it.
I know everything. I haven't even told these guys.
And, you know, Charlie, you know, Catholicism is a huge part of the character, and it's unique because it's not really part of any other Marvel character. They're not really tied to a religion, but it's this battle of he's trying to do good, but he's doing bad. He's you know, asking for forgiveness for not what he's done, but what he's about to do. You know, so the role of religion with the character, how is that shaping him, and where does that kind of find him in season 2 at the battles that he's facing with Jon's character?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still very much there. It's still very much like a kind of a shadow over his shoulder. It's in the first season, you know, there was with the way that the first season was structured, there was this, Matt was kind of obsessed with this man and the finding of this man and the belief that if he could bring this one guy to justice, everything else would kind of fall into place. And in that process, there was a lot of time while he didn't have a next move. He didn't know what else to do, and so he was a lot of time for him to spend in his apartment and with those feelings and with that guilt, that Catholic guilt, and wondering about, you know, does he have the right to do this because his gifts are in some ways God-given, and at the same time, is he you know, kind of playing God, if you like. This season, I think that those feelings are still there. It's just that the way the season is structured, there's so much happens to Matt. I mean, he's pulled in so many different directions, and he's got the Punisher. There's different gangs, Irish gangs. There's biker gangs involved. Elektra shows up. He's trying to kind of find a vulnerability with Karen, and it just goes so crazy for him that he almost doesn't have time to think about that stuff. So in a way, it's still there, and it's still hopefully present in his thinking and in his feelings. But it's not something that we investigate to the same degree as we did last year.
I gotcha. And you know, introducing 2 huge characters with the Punisher and Elektra. You know, but this is still Matt Murdock's story. And so, what was the balance of that just making sure that everyone got their proper, you know, time on screen, but develop their stories, their backstories, but still keeping it, you know, Matt's kind of throughout.
I don't know. You know, the honest answer is I don't know, because I wasn't really privy to any of those conversations. I'm sure those are conversations that happen in the writers' room and with the showrunners and with Marvel and Netflix and that stuff. But that's not really my job. My job is just to read the scripts and kind of bring this, you know, try and bring these moments, make this journey and these scenes as truthful as possible. It's kind of related, but what I will say is what I thought that the writers did spectacularly well this year is that obviously the show had a degree of success, and so we want to kind of keep the same idea as, you know, we want to kind of maintain the tone of the show and the many aspects of the show, but we also want to do something new. It's the second season. And what they did really wonderfully well was they, you know, whereas for the first season there was this drive towards this one guy who was kind of the villain, he was the big bad, and that the good and evil was kind of maybe a little bit clearer last year. And this year that's not the case. You know, Frank Castle is kind of known as an anti-hero rather than a villain. And although initially when he shows up, I think Matt would like to pigeonhole Frank Castle. He'd like to say, well, this is another Wilson Fisk. He needs to be put away. He needs to be taken care of. And what Karen suggests quite early on to Matt is that actually maybe they're very similar. Maybe they're cut from the same cloth. And that idea, that concept is anathema to Matt, because it means that if that's true, then really he's responsible for all this mayhem, and he needs to kind of, you know, hang up the suit, which is probably the thing he wants to do least of all. Yeah.
Right. And so, Jon, in your character, you know, with Frank Castle, Punisher, you were phenomenal in Fury, in David Ayer's Fury. And was there anything, because Frank Castle is a little similar in that he's a war veteran, and, you know, was there anything that you brought from Fury, or you learned from that film that you brought into the character?
Thanks, man. I mean, you know, I think you have to bring so much of yourself to each part, and I think that, you know, these are all you know, it's kind of a hokey answer, but these are all part of your sort of collective experience, and I think that, you know, Fury is, you know, that experience with those guys and with David is really burned into my soul. So yeah, I think, you know, I think, you know, part of the military aspect and part of the training, I'm sure, you know, really came in handy, you know. But you know, I think that I just think this whole thing is different. I think you know, this is, you know, this is the age of television, and there's no place that I'd rather be. It's an unbelievable opportunity, and I think the Netflix model is it gives you the opportunity, I think, to really be bold enough to abandon the audience and turn your back on them. And I think with a character like this, I think, yeah, you know, look, we're telling the story of Matt Murdock, and I think for me to be able to play this character and know that I can do something so deplorable and so full on that the audience, you can go as far to say, I genuinely do not care if the audience completely abandons this character, because in 2-3 episodes down the road, I get a chance to win them back. And the cool thing is they're not waiting 2 or 3 weeks for that episode. And so it's constantly sort of this push, especially having the freedom of it not being your character's story. You know, you can really sort of push the envelope there. And I think it's, you know, that you don't get those opportunities, I feel like, in film.
Yeah, just from your guys' perspective, coming into this superhero, you know, realm now, and, you know, superhero movies and what this show is it's just completely different. So what do you think the impact, what has, I guess, surprised you about what this show has done with the superhero genre? Because it's, like I said, it's something completely different. Even though it's still in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's completely different.
For me, it doesn't really feel actually to step in a superhero world, because the writing is so good, and this project is so characters driven that you just feel that you know, it's very grounded. I think, you know, none of our characters are these superheroes or the villains that are saving the world, and, you know, it just feels that there's so much of ourselves in these characters, and and a will from the writers to make it to make them more humans, that it doesn't feel really like a superhero show.
Well, I think for me, along those lines, it's the idea of consequences. That, you know, when the bad guys are Nazis or aliens, or, you know, you can kind of kill indiscriminately, and because they're evil, and so that's over. But our villains, if you want to call them that, are human beings that, you know, Fisk thought he was doing the best that he could for his community, and Frank Castle thinks that he's, you know, going to take down the people who are making this world a bad place. And I like that our show doesn't, it stays in the gray. It doesn't try to label.
Yeah.
Gotcha. We'll be taking audience questions in just a few minutes if you guys want to start lining up. You know, being in that and being so different, and it's amazing because you guys aren't gods or super soldiers or have Stark technology or anything like that, you know, but you're still in that world, you know, and this is hypothetical, this is the geekiness, is if you were to join the Avengers, hypothetical because you guys can't talk about it, but hypothetically, if you were to, what could your characters actually bring to help them?
Well,
No, I think it's special.
Hypothetically, it's
listen,
just what...
They're saving the world, and Matt Murdock is like defending the crap out of 10 blocks of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Like, that's his role.
yeah.
Right?
If you read Civil War, right? Daredevil is in Civil War, and he's kind of, if you read that, if you were to isolate the panels that include Daredevil from Civil War, from those issues, it's the same Daredevil that we have on our show, I think. Because he's in the background. He's aware that he doesn't quite have the same powers as the other guys in the room. So he's a little bit moody, and he's in the background, and he kind of makes sinister comments every now and again, and like puts everyone in their place. And he's kind of a key element in the whole way that story unfolds, in the way that his abilities allow him to be. And when you read that comic, you don't question it tonally. So I don't see how that would be a problem. So put us in the Avengers.
You guys just remaining silent. Nothing. You've got this down, Jon. We'll start with Elodie. What are your characters, we'll go down the line, what are your characters' greatest weakness?
Oh, you know, I actually, at first when I started working on this character, I really had no clue who she was. And I did some research and read the comics, and then I came across an interview of Frank Miller, and he said that for him, Elektra, it wasn't the case of, you know, finding out if she was a good girl or a bad girl, but she was one of these villains who have a weak streak in them. And so I was wondering, what was this, you know, this weakness, this failure? And I believe that it's the love she once had for Matthew.
Cool.
I think it's really what makes her a bit more human than the sociopath that the writers wanted me to be. And I really, you know, tried to bring this in my character in this season. I think that's her weakness. This is the love that and you find it in the comics. You know, she left the world she didn't believe in because of, you know, the death of her dad, and she tried really to get rid of Matthew because that was the only thing that would attach her to this past. So I think that's really her weakness. She's capable of love, as much as she's capable of killing, of course, but she is capable of love.
Jon?
Look, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, I think what first jumps into my mind, and I think which is sort of like thematically what we're talking about this show, and I think what makes this show really powerful, is that it's not about, like we've said, it's not about superheroes. It's a really human-centered show, and I think in any human being, you know, the thing that makes you the most powerful is also what makes you the most weak, and what you love about people oftentimes is very much cousin to you know what you could hate about them. And I think with Frank, you know, he has no superpower, you know. He's really, really, really angry, you know, and he's got a lot of rage, and you know, it's what makes him so strong, and he's not the best fighter. He's not the, you know, he does not have any super strength, but you know, you better kill him, you know, and you know, I think because of that, that's also his weakness. I think that he's so driven, and this mission that he's on is so unbelievably personal. And I think that, you know, the Frank Castle that you're going to see in season 2 of Daredevil is not necessarily the Punisher yet. I think you're going to see a guy who is not really concerned with the safety of Hell's Kitchen, not really concerned with ridding the world of bad guys. He is trying to find the people that killed his family and kill them in the most brutal way possible. That's his mission, and it's very, very personal. And morality, consequence, right or wrong, all that's out the window. So, you know, that's also puts him in an extremely vulnerable position, because he may do things that, you know, at the end of the day, he is a human being, and he may end up doing things there that he regret, and that are completely, you know, do not go along with what he believes in. And I think what these writers were smart enough to do is you have a character who's put so much time and effort in building this wall around his morality and making himself as impenetrable as possible. But I think what's cool is these great characters around him penetrate that wall, and at the end of the day, he is a human being. So, yeah, it's a long-ass answer to a short-ass question.
No. No, it's great. And really quickly, just it's interesting because you were saying about like the fighting, he's not the best fighter and stuff. It's really interesting to see your character, you know, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, try to fight him because he has guns and something like he's never handled before. It's just interesting because they've changed your fight style. They've changed his approach to actually taking down enemies. It's been pretty interesting. Cool. So yeah, more of a statement, I guess, than a question. Back to Deborah.
I don't know. I'm honestly, I'm so floored by that question. I don't know why. It like really got to me. I feel like in our identities, in our sense of ourselves, we have our two sides. We have the side that we wish we are, the side that we hope that we are, and then we have the side that we're afraid is true. And I think about that a lot with Karen. I think about that a lot. I think about how there's the person that she wants to be and the heroes that she sees around him, and being terribly, terribly afraid that she will never live up to that she will never be the person that she wants to be. That this person who can stop injustice. I think about this season and the corruption, and the word that comes to mind is impotence. This feeling that there is nothing I can do. As hard as I try, I'm a bitch. As hard as I try, I'm pushy. As hard as I try, I'm impotent. I have no power. I have no control. And it's heartbreaking. And I feel like that doubt, that fear, is Karen's weakness. That it keeps her from feeling like she has any power or can change anything. And I think that's why she looks up to people like Daredevil. And I wish she could see it in herself. And I think I'm emotional because I probably have some, this is me too. This is my little sister too. But yeah, that's my long answer.
Yeah. Follow that.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Do with that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, God, no, I don't want to.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to go relatively quickly because I'd love to get to these. But, you know, I think that Matt's biggest weakness probably is that it's probably the worst thing that could have happened to Matt was defeating Wilson Fisk, because with every day that passes, with every successful night out, bringing people down, he's getting more arrogant. He's got more of a swagger to him. There's more confidence. There's more a feeling of invincibility, and he's more convinced that he can do this by himself. And I think, well, he's going to have to learn at some point, maybe this season, maybe not, that he can't. There you go.
Wonderful. Yep, you.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much for coming here. Just wanted to ask, while you all were working on this show, did you feel there are any differences because of Netflix versus, say, shows you worked on other networks like HBO or AMC?
I think there are tremendous differences. Yeah, the thing I noticed first of all was the style of writing, because because it's not appointment television, you don't have to spend any time at the beginning of an episode or at the end of an episode either reminding people what happened the week before or creating enough of a dramatic ending so that you will bring people back. You'll put that thing in someone that says, I got to find out what happened to those characters. You know what I mean? And that, and so you're gaining an extra 5-10 minutes either side of an episode. Where you can just continue telling story, you continue being with the characters, and you can allow it to kind of flow more succinctly. I said once before, it feels more like a kind of a 13-hour movie than it does episodic television. And the other thing being is, what they're discovering on Netflix more and more as well, even as more shows come out, is that we don't have to conform to what we know as television. We can do what we want. They can do what they want. So an episode now doesn't have to be a set time. It doesn't have to come in at 55 minutes with enough time for commercial breaks. It can be anywhere from 35 minutes to 55 minutes. When you turn on Netflix, you watch an episode of television, you'll see every episode is a different length. So you can edit each episode so that it works best. That story in that 1 hour or 50 minutes works best without having to kind of find a few minutes or lose a few minutes to make the time. I just think all that makes for just much more kind of creative work.
Thank you.
Hi. So another new Netflix show has come out about a superhero since the first season of Daredevil was released, Jessica Jones. And I'm wondering if you guys are fans of Jessica Jones and if we'll see her at all in Daredevil, be it this season or potentially in the future.
Well, you guys have the Defenders coming up. This is all leading up to the big team up of the Defenders.
No comment?
No comment.
Are you guys at least fans?
Yeah, I love Jessica Jones. I thought it was. I mean, I thought it was fantastic, and I don't really want to hog another question, but what I would say is having seen it and recognize how totally different it is from the first season of Daredevil and how brilliant it is. I'm so interested to see how those two characters, that world combines, including the world that they create for Luke Cage and Iron Fist. I think that's going to answer a lot of the questions that people have about whether it works within the Avengers, because those two shows were very different. But I think we can see how they will exist in the same universe.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, I love the show. Thank you so much for coming. It's great to see you guys. I actually live in Hell's Kitchen, and it's a super pleasant and safe place.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to watch the show and look out my window. And okay, whatever. But I guess my main question is, you guys have such complicated and amazing fighting choreography during the show, especially kind of thinking back to that one ridiculous hallway scene where Daredevil's just really beating up a ton of people. When you guys are doing really big scenes like that where you want it to kind of be one shot, how much kind of time and preparation and practice do you guys go through, and how many takes do you guys end up, specifically for that one scene, how many takes before you actually got the final cut? And then as a follow-up, Charlie, how well can you actually see through that mask that you wear during the show before the red suit, of course?
Great questions. So the first thing I will say is Phil Silvera, our stunt coordinator, genius. My stunt double, Chris Brewster, is an extraordinary human being, as well as being one of the nicest people I've ever met. I mean, some of the stuff he pulls, it's like, I remember seeing a cut piece of footage from one of the episodes last year and thinking that they'd slowed it down or something, because I didn't realize a human being could stay in the air as long as that. But they didn't. We get as Elodie said, we get very little time. The stunt team are rehearsing through the week. We're shooting the other scenes, and then we come in and we learn most of the fights. We learn it's shot as you would shoot a scene, so it's shot in pieces. So I'm able to learn between 6 and 10 moves at once, and I learn that as best I can. We shoot that, and we move on to the next section, and we go about it that way. The fight that you're referring to in season 1 was a one take. And what was cool about that was we spent the whole morning, we had a day to do it. We spent the whole morning just rehearsing the camera movements, right? So just basically plotting the action, and it was just all about the camera. We then started shooting it, and take 2 or 3 was pretty good. We got through it, you know what I mean? And everyone was like, that was pretty good. And then someone went, I think we could probably do better. And then at midnight, we were still there. And we were literally on because it's long take. We were on our 12th or 13th take, and we were like, okay, we'll do one more time. Chris Brewster got injured at one point, and we weren't sure if he was going to be able to continue. And we did one more, and that was the one. You know, it just all came into place. You know, and the thing I always think is memorable about that scene, and it's something that we kind of, maybe this isn't true, but I always think we kind of stumbled upon it accidentally, was that Daredevil and the other characters need time to breathe. They get out of breath, and there's moments where they kind of, both of them are kind of, they know they got to go back at each other, but they're prolonging it because they're catching their breath. And that was true because it was happening. You know what I mean? They were trying to give themselves as much time, and I think that's what a fight is like. You know, you can't keep going like that. You are destroyed, and I'm hopefully that, you know, I think that may, you know, change how people do fight scenes in that. Stop looking at your watch.
I won't. Sorry.
Change how people do things in the future.
That wasn't for you.
No.
I got Netflix looking at me.
Hey guys, huge fan of the show. I was just wondering, so obviously Wilson Fisk gets locked up at the end of season 1. Can we expect to see a cameo? Can we expect for him to make a cameo in season 2 or in the upcoming seasons?
I'm handing that. You can.
No comment.
All right, I guess.
Oh. I mean, there's literally, we literally cannot answer that question.
Well, and the next question is for you, Jon. Being that your character uses such military precision, can you tell us a little bit more about what you did to prepare for the role?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that, I mean, as far as the physicality and the weapons training, you know, I think there's, you know, when you prepare for a part, it's twofold, right? There's all the physical stuff. There's the, you know, how's he going to walk? How's he going to talk? How's he going to handle the familiarity with, you know, the props, the weapons, and so on and so forth. But then, you know, there's the you know, the real deal preparation, and that's the, you know, diving in the emotional stuff. And, you know, I've said before, you know, I'm a husband and I'm a father, and I think that, you know, there's no way I could begin to even attempt to tackle this part until I got there. You know, I think until I really realized, you know, and know in my bones what it's like to, you know, love people so much more than I love myself, and so willingly would give up my life for them. How can I begin to imagine what it would be like for this man if somebody, you know, took his family? And what that requires for me is going to a really, really scary, really, really dark place. And since it scared the living shit out of me, I was like, I really got to do this. You know, I really got to try this. But that's where it kind of all sort of starts with me is that. And sorry, that doesn't answer your question, but that's where, yeah. Sorry.
All right, thank you so much.
Rock and roll.
Thank you.
Last question.
Hey guys, thank you so much for coming along. It's been a pleasure seeing you guys answer questions and discuss stuff. One question for you, Karen, is being in the middle from like the perspective of seeing seeing Daredevil do what he does in helping out the community, but also in season 2 seeing Punisher kind of exact his revenge of like what the normal citizen would want if he was in that predicament of losing someone. Mm-hmm. How do you feel her character interprets the right moral choice?
Oh, great question.
I mean, you've hit upon Karen's storyline for season 2, essentially. No, but I think if you look at someone who has this questionable past, we're not quite sure what that is, but we do know about what happened with Wesley. Now, if the whole world looks at Frank Castle and says he's a monster, then Karen's a monster. If the whole world looks at Daredevil and says Daredevil's a hero, well, Karen took it too far. So I think she looks at these examples of people who are doing things in her life, and she has to determine for herself whether she thinks what she did was right. And it's an unanswerable question. I mean, there is no answer to that. It's not right, and it's not wrong. And she was in a situation that none of us, we hope none of us will ever be in. So I think I can go so far to say that Karen is fascinated by Frank Castle and what he means, what he represents, because in some ways he represents her.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Great question.
And quickly, because I know you guys got to go, just through your guys' development from season 1 now to season 2, and now you guys joining on season 2, just from the beginning of that to the end, what did you find in your characters that surprised you the most or that excited you the most about each of your characters?
You're looking at me.
I'm looking right at you. You haven't spoken in a while.
I don't think there's one thing I could pick from this character that really, stands out more for me. It's not English, but you guys got it. You know, Elektra is such a complex character. For me, just having the opportunity to get to know what, you know, just go back to the essence of Elektra and discover this world of comics was something new and fascinating for me. Trying to capture the essence and put it in this character that we built for the show was exciting. Getting to, I talked a lot with the writers, and they wanted her to be a sociopath, so I had to do some homework and really trying to find out what a sociopath is, and yeah, playing someone that seemed to be very cold, that has no remorse, no sense of guilt, no sense of empathy, or, you know, who doesn't care about the well-being of others. That was something actually pretty interesting for me. All this aspect, all this side was really good. But then tapping into my own emotions and my own experience to bring some of her more human side and some of this failure that I talked about, you know, with this relationship and this love she had once for Matthew. That was also very, you know, that was just, that was great as an actress to do that as well in some scenes. So the whole thing, I mean, I just love Elektra, and that's it. It was just good for me. It was really good.
What surprised me, I think that he's, you know, he's in such a dark sort of cloud of rage and anger, but within that, his ability to be not just tactical in terms of how he fights, but psychologically tactical, and he's got the ability to manipulate, and he can be cunning, and you know, that was a pleasant surprise that they let me kind of play with that. How, I guess, his intelligence, you know.
I won't cry this time. I, Deborah, am sort of a silly, dare I say, dorky person, and I never really saw much room for that in Karen at the beginning. She seemed like such a serious, sort of intelligent-minded person. And this year, I think I was surprised I was able to find more of that aspect of myself in it, that there were moments where she felt a little awkward. I feel like she cannot keep her cool around Matt Murdock, and there are some really fun moments that I can't talk about too specifically where serious things were happening, and then we did a scene following it, and there were moments where I found myself like cracking jokes that I didn't even know were in the script, and sort of laughing in them, and it I don't know, it was a surprising cool thing to find.
Yeah, a really good question. I think the thing that sprung to mind was that I guess what surprised me about the character, but also I think about all characters, is that, all people, is that we're kind of walking contradictions, you know, and we can simultaneously believe two very opposite things. I think it's a Chris Christopherson song where he says, you know, we're walking contradictions, or something like those things. And I think with Matt, that's probably the thing that confuses him the most, is that he does, you know, he's one person with Karen, and that is very true, that is very authentic, that is really how he believes and what he wants in life, and then he's a very different person with Elektra, and that side of himself is also valid, is also real, and yet, if you were to, as an outsider, if you were to see those behaviors, you would say that guy's a hypocrite, but I'm not sure that that's true, and I think often we relate to those kind of things as people.
Good. Well, thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah. Daredevil Season 2 is only on Netflix, March 18th globally, so check it out. It's awesome.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.